Welcome to Knowledge Valley for IAS, IFS, IPS. Today we are going to discuss on the rise of the left or the socialist ideology in Indian freedom struggle. The left ideology or the socialist ideology was came into being, or you can say uh, became dominant worldwide after the formation of Russian Revolution in 1917. And after this period, it was the left ideology influenced the Indian freedom struggle. But did it was the rise of the left after 1917, or did socialism come after 1917? The answer is no. Socialism came long before 1917, that is during the 18th and 19th century. The reason for the rise of the socialists were actually the capitalists themselves. A lot of exploitation was going on by the capitalists, and that is why socialism rose because of the rise of the capitalist. And one of the main features to give a proper philosophy or a proper structure to socialism was Karl Marx. Now, the person in front of you on the screen is Karl Marx. He was, you can say, he is considered to be a very important person for socialism. But socialism, in its proper structure and its proper philosophy and political power, came after 1917, and socialism had its impact on Indian freedom struggle. So let's see, how did socialism impact the Indian freedom struggle. Yes, so socialism in the Indian freedom struggle came after 1920, as I have already said, and one of the reason was the Russian Revolution. There are other factors also. Before seeing the other factors, we will see there were links of the socialists, or you can say there was a link of the Indian nationalists with socialism before 1917 also. And socialism was always there as an ideology, because socialism speaks about equality, but we did not recognize it, or we did not bring it in a great sense in the Indian freedom struggle. This happened, as I have told you, after 1970, and especially after 1920. Let's see the factors which were responsible for the growth of the left. So the first factor which was responsible for the growth of the left was colonialism. That was a result of capitalism. So we know the Britishers exploited India for their selfish interest, and they made us a colony for their trade and for their selfish interest. So that is why the first we can say colonialism. The second factor that we can see is unionism started due to development of modern industries. When the British came to India, the industrial revolution was at its peak, and slowly British, they disrupted our traditional industries, though they did not give rise to modern industries right away, but slowly and steadily modern industries grew in India in the 19th and the 20th century, and that is how trade unions started. We will see the growth of All India Trade Union Congress, etc. Okay, so trade union started. This also helped in the rise of the left ideology or socialism. Third point is early Congress leaders tilted towards socialism. So two three leaders which are very important, like Nehru, you have Subhash Chandra Bose and S.A. Dange. These are very important for the spread of socialism. Even before Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, there were leaders like Dadabhai Nauroji, and you have Tilak, even Lala Lajpat Rai. All these were tilted towards socialism. No faith in Gandhi's Satyagraha. What happened is, after the non-cooperation movement, the abrupt stop of non-cooperation movement and start of the constructive program by Gandhiji, and even after that, in many places you have various movements started and abruptly ended. They had some special significance, but people couldn't understand that, and that is why they started moving towards socialism, which was a little more radical than Gandhiji's ideology or Gandhiji's way of doing the things. Then the next important point is leaders like Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Gandhiji, etc. popularized socialist ideas. So socialism talks about equality to all. Socialism talks about welfare of all. Socialism talks about no freedom, that is, no one should be dominating over the others. Now, this ideology was liked by Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, and Gandhiji, and that is why they were fighting for freedom. So, that is why there was a tilt towards socialist ideas. The sixth point is Russian Revolution. As already I have told you earlier, 1917, we have the February, and then you have the October Revolution in Russia. Bolsheviks came to power, so Russian Revolution. Seventh point is Great Depression of 1929. Great Depression of 1929 saw all the major capitalist countries suffered, whereas a country like USSR, which was socialist and lived on or formed on planning economy, they came out of this with in good shape. So that is why the socialists, or you can say many people, were very amazed with the socialist way of working. So you have Great Depression of 1929 exposed weakness of capitalist economy. Only USSR came out strong. Next point is Gandhiji's abrupt stop of CDM, that is civil disobedience movement, which led people tilt towards the left. Another, I have told you about non-cooperation movement. Even civil disobedience movement Gandhiji had stopped, and that is why people tilted towards socialism. Ideologies like Nazism. Now, Nazism, fascism, all these was because of capitalism, and even the capitalist countries did not do anything about these ideology, and that is why people showed disregard, or people disliked capitalism and this fascism, and they tilted towards socialism. So when you have to remember, just remember the factors. First is colonialism, that is the Britishers. Second is trade unionism, various trade unions. Then you have early Congress leaders tilting towards socialism. No faith in Gandhiji's Satyagraha. Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Gandhi all popularized socialist ideas. Russian Revolution, Great Depression, Gandhiji's abrupt stop of various you can say movements, and finally ideology like Nazism also showed negative points of other ideologies. Okay, so these were one of the or some of the factors for responsible for the growth of the left. Now let's see the rise and growth of communist movement. What was the reason, or who were the reason for the rise and growth of communist movement? So the first reason is Indian communism sprang, or it increased, due to the the people were disillusioned by various sections of people who actually took part in the Indian freedom. They were disillusioned by revolutionaries, by non-cooperators, right, by khilafatists, labor peasant activists, moderates, extremists, etc. So the people were very disillusioned by these revolutionaries, and thus they many turned towards communism. This is one of the factor. Now, who's the founder of communism in India? So you have the picture in front of you. He is the founder of Yugantar revolutionary, that is M.N. Roy. That is Manbendranath Roy, M.N. Roy. Naren Bhattacharjee, his real name is Naren Bhattacharjee or M.N. Roy. So you can see the picture in front of you. Now, why is M.N. Roy so important? So first, he was the founder of Communist Party of India along with Abani Mukherjee and some khilafatists, Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Shafiq. So remember, M.N. Roy started Communist Party of India in Tashkent in 1920 with Abani Mukherjee, khilafatist Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Shafiq. Who influenced M.N. Roy? M.N. Roy was influenced by Bolshevik Mikhail Borodin. So remember, M.N. Roy was influenced by Bolshevik Mikhail Borodin, and M.N. Roy formed CPI in Tashkent. In 1921, new Indian recruits joined Toilers of East University in Moscow. 1921, new Indian recruits joined Toilers of East University in Moscow. M.N. Roy had changed his headquarters to Berlin, Germany. So from Tashkent, he moved it to Berlin, Germany. He also removed, or you can say, he started publishing a fortnightly, that is after 2 weeks. Means there was a paper which comes every 2 weeks, that's fortnightly, Vanguard of Indian Independence, and published India in Transition with Abani Mukherjee. So just remember about M.N. Roy. M.N. Roy full name is Manbendranath Roy. Manbendranath Roy. Remember, he was influenced by Mikhail Borodin. Also, you have to remember, he started Communist Party in Tashkent, and this was started by M.N. Roy with Abani Mukherjee, Muhammad Ali, the Khilafatist Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Shafiq. And then many Indian recruits joined Toilers of East University in Moscow, and M.N. Roy shifted the base from Tashkent to Germany, that is Berlin. And two papers that you have to remember: Vanguard of Indian Independence and India in Transition. Okay, so remember these points about M.N. Roy. In 1923, S.A. Dange started Socialist from Bombay. It was a weekly which was in English. Later, another weekly was in Bengali. It is Janvani, which was started in Calcutta. It was a Bengali weekly. Revolutionary groups tilted over Marxism. So many revolutionary groups were there which was tilted towards Marxism. This was headed by the Old Berlin group, which was Virendranath Chattopadhyay. You have Bhupendranath Dutt and Barkatullah. So after M.N. Roy, you have various other leaders now. The revolutionary groups are also tilting towards Marxism. Then the next point you must remember, even the Gadar movement people, that is people from the Gadar party, they started moving towards Marxism or communism. This was under Ratan Singh, Santokh Singh, Teja Singh Swatantra. So remember, so first we have M.N. Roy and Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Shafiq and S.A. Dange. Then the second list we have Virendranath Chattopadhyay, Bhupendranath Dutt, Barkatullah, and the third list we have Santokh Singh, Teja Singh Swatantra, and Ratan Singh, who were tilted towards communism. We are seeing how communism is spreading slowly and steadily. Many communist leaders developed links with leaders like S.A. Dange in Bombay, Muzaffar Ahmad in Calcutta. In Madras we had Singaravelu, and in Lahore Ghulam Hussain. So many big leaders like M.N. Roy and all, they started having contacts with smaller communist leaders. S.A. Dange Bombay, Muzaffar Ahmad Calcutta, Madras Singaravelu, and Lahore. So you have to just remember. So we are seeing the fourth set of people now. Okay. Then the next point, 2nd November 1922, Roy, that is M.N. Roy, outlined two plans. One is the legal plan and the other is the illegal plan. A legal plan was mostly part of the constitutional or the outright way. Illegal was the secret communist nucleus which was working inside the workers and the peasants. So these was illegal, legal and illegal. Ninth point you must remember, many historians accept that organized communism came to India when M.N. Roy and followers came into this country. So before M.N. Roy and the followers, there was no proper communism which came to India. After them, this started. So who were these? So this was M.N. Roy, Abani Mukherjee, Virendranath Chattopadhyay. When these people started coming to India, we have proper communism starting. Then next point you must remember international mujahirs, that is the khilafatists. They also tried to enter India and were tried in various conspiracies. So two conspiracy, Peshawar conspiracy and Kanpur Bolshevik conspiracy should be remembered. So Peshawar conspiracy, remember 1922-27, and May 1924 you have Kanpur Bolshevik conspiracy. And Kanpur Bolshevik conspiracy you have Muzaffar Ahmad, S.A. Dange, Shaukat Usmani and Nalini Gupta. So we have to remember, again I'll repeat the names: M.N. Roy, Abani Mukherjee and the Khilafatists, Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Shafiq. Then second line of people that you have to remember are the revolutionary groups. The revolutionary groups like Virendranath Chattopadhyay, Bhupendranath Dutt, Barkatullah. Then you must remember the Gadar movement group, that is Ratan Singh, Santokh Singh, Teja Singh, Swatantra. Then you have to remember the group which came to India, that is you can also say that is M.N. Roy, Abani Mukherjee, Virendranath Chattopadhyay, and then finally the international mujahirs related to Peshawar conspiracy and Kanpur conspiracy. And Kanpur conspiracy is Muzaffar Ahmad, S.A. Dange, Shaukat Usmani and Nalini Gupta. There was not much of setback. So because of Kanpur and this Peshawar conspiracy, it was a setback, yes, but not as much, because later we have in 1925 Satya Bhakta. He sets up or opens a communist conference in Kanpur 1925. So remember, Satya Bhakta sets up a conference in Kanpur in 1925. And then we have in this conference Hazrat Mohani. He is there for as a chairman of the reception committee, and Singara Velu as president. Remember, Hazrat Mohani is the chairman of this communist conference and Singara Velu as the president. Communists mostly took their directions from United Kingdom. That is, they were communist in United Kingdom. From them they took the direction. It was R. Palm Dutt who was the link between communist in England and communist in India. So you have to remember this. So direction of Communist Party was from England. Okay. Then how did the Britishers react? So first we saw how was the communism formed. We saw the various people, and we saw how various groups are slow and steady joining. Now we also then saw from where was the communists getting their direction. Now we'll see what did the British do. The British, did they leave the communists without taking any action? Answer is no. Repression was there, a lot of repression, but repression could not check the fast spreading left ideology, because the working class and the exploited people, they were not happy with what was going on. So thus socialism, communism grew, and there was social organization which was increasing. Workers Peasants Party was formed. First Workers Peasants Party, remember, in Bengal 1926, and then All India Workers Peasants Party 1927. So very important facts you must remember. Some fact like CPI, Communist Party of India, Tashkent 1920, Satya Bhakta's Communist Conference 1925, Workers Peasants Party 26, Bengal, and All India Workers Peasants Party 27, December 1927. Okay, then you have to remember how was their relationship with the National Congress, that is the communist relationship with National Congress. Initially the relationship was good. Okay, you must remember, initially the relationship was good. From 1925 to 29, CPI cooperated with the Congress, and they worked under the sixth direction of the sixth communist international, 25 to 29. But then they broke the relation. The Workers and Peasant Party was dissolved, and Communist Party broke the relationship with Congress. So remember, 25 to 29 they had good relation. After that they broke the relation. Then CPI was banned in 1934. Then CPI was again reorganized in 1935 under the leadership of PC Joshi. Now they will work they were working under the direction of 7th Congress, which said that they should be having close relationship with the Congress. 7th Congress of Communist International. So remember, 6th Congress of Communist International, initially 25 to 29 they said to keep good relation, but after 29 bad relation. Now in 35 when CPI is banned, and then 34 when CPI is banned, and 35 when CPI is reorganized, and they are now getting directions from 7th Congress of Communist International 1935. Now they are again going to go and cooperate with Congress, but this is going to be till 1942, because 1942 we have Russia when they join England. So the communists supported the war, whereas Congress was against the war. So this is how the relationship between communist and the Congress was, which was changing according to the time and situation. Let us see the rise of left within the Congress. The leaders of Indian National Congress were in touch with socialism. That is, Dadabhai Naoroji had contact with H.M. Hindman, who was a socialist. Also attended the conference of socialism in Amsterdam. So it's not that socialism rose after Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose. It was also during the time of Dadabhai Naoroji. Even Tilak and Lala Lajpat Rai both were influenced with socialist ideology. Both showed connection with socialists, spoke about evils of private property, and spoke for equal opportunity. Second point, early national leaders, though they were influenced by socialism, did not take it seriously. They were not seriously thinking about socialism, thinking it would hurt nationalism. Now, why did they think it would hurt nationalism? In nationalist movement, support was needed from all sections, and leaders were afraid that socialism would encourage fights between sections. So you have the upper sections fighting with the lower sections. So all these things would create problems for the nationalist struggle, and that is why the nationalists did not focus on socialism or did not take it seriously. The stronger section will not support nationalist cause if socialism was focused on, because socialism speaks of equality and no exploitation, etc. Such dangers, now why did these things come and why did these things thrive? Because such dangers were result of insufficient understanding between various sections in India. So various sections in India did not understand how did the British, how was their relationship with Indians. Okay, so after drain of wealth by Dadabhai Naoroji, then only people started realizing slowly and steadily. So first, relationship was not known. Secondly, they didn't have any idea of potential of socialism. Socialism was also new, so they didn't know how this will work out. So these two other reasons. The early nationalists themselves came from upper castes who only did lip service. So what happens is, mostly if you have noticed, those people who are from the rich class or the richer sections of the society or the stronger section of society, they feel very bad for the weaker section or the lower section, but they hardly do anything, or if they do anything, it will be only till it is not hurting their interests. So that is how the early nationalists also came from the upper section. So that is why they did not work much. In the First World War, Congress was soft, and that is why they did not give more focus, or they did not attack the Britishers. But when the socialists had their influence, the Congress and their young leaders started attacking the Britishers and asking for complete independence. And initially it was not part of the integral program. On other side, Congress did think about the oppression, but not completely socialist. So socialism was never a part initially of the program, but yeah, they thought about the oppression of the people. So when we say rise of the left within the Congress, first you have to give what the earlier Congress people were doing, then why they did not give more focus on socialism, then what happened during the time of First World War. So okay, so just remember that. Now, then you have to remember, slow and steady, the impact of socialism increased after the First World War. The impact of socialism increased. Leaders, strong socialist leaders came in, and they started uh, mobilizing the masses and fought for Indian freedom and asking for complete freedom. And that is how socialism was growing slowly and steadily. Political objectives, the socialists, the Indian nationalists, that is the moderates and the extremists, they gave more focus on political objectives rather than socio-economic development. Thus, thinking about 1930s, this thinking about 1930 changed in the 1930s by slowly talking about socialism and slowly talking about complete freedom. Reasons were many, which we have already discussed, and we are going to discuss it further. Let's see how the Indian National Congress moved or drift towards socialism after the suspension of non-cooperation movement. Not exactly all the members of Indian National Congress, majority of the members of Indian National Congress moved towards socialism after withdrawal of non-cooperation movement. So let's see that. We have, so what we can see is, during the rise of socialism, one of the major factor was First World War, and after the First World War, we can see there is a recession which was happening in the First World War. The prices of the goods was increasing, the growth was low, and there was frustration in various sections about whatever was happening in the economic front. So, new inspiring leadership of Gandhi, the second reason for the drift or tilt towards socialism is new inspiring leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. His ideas were also focusing on the socialism, which is the Gandhian form of socialism. Method of Gandhiji needed mass participation, therefore socialism was wanting. Mass mobilization was the watchword. So after the First World War and during the start of non-cooperation movement (NCM), mass mobilization was needed, and without socialism, mass mobilization is somewhat not possible. Impact of abrupt closure, and so we are seeing a world war, we are seeing the economic situation, we are seeing rise of Mahatma Gandhi and the NCM itself. Now, the abrupt closure of NCM also was one of the reasons for the tilt towards socialism, where people were feeling that they are going to get independence soon. Mahatma Gandhi stops non-cooperation movement due to it was getting violent, and the other reasons which we'll discuss later. And the no changers, they started following Gandhiji's program. Pro changers started joining Swarajist, became responsivist, etc. So remember, Swarajist and responsivist. So all these were the reasons tilting towards socialism. And finally, socialism in Congress born out of intellectual and political exercise. So it was an ideology. In Congress, there was a search for an appropriate ideology that could guide or could serve as a guiding spirit for the freedom struggle. So all these reasons, the people in the Indian National Congress started moving towards socialism. Let's see the growth of the socialism in the late, or you can say in 1920s and 30s. One of the most important leader was Jawaharlal Nehru. He worked amongst the peasants in Rai Bareli and Pratapgarh in UP. Nehru criticized Gandhi against the withdrawal of the non-cooperation movement. He was disturbed with the Hindu-Muslim bitterness which happened after the non-cooperation movement. So we are seeing Nehru's role in growth of socialism. So just remember, he was a critique of Mahatma Gandhi on non-cooperation movement removal, or you can say the stop of non-cooperation movement. He worked with the peasants in Rai Bareli and Pratapgarh. He was disturbed with Hindu-Muslim bitterness. He wanted the unity. and he was strongly focused towards socialism. In 1926, Nehru visited Europe and he got in touch with various forms of socialism. He himself was a student of socialism, but he was exposed to various forms of socialism in Europe. He appreciated the freedom in Europe. 1927, Jawaharlal Nehru attended International Congress against colonialism and colonial oppression and imperialism in Brussels. So just remember 1927, Nehru attended International Congress against colonial oppression and imperialism in Brussels. These experiences influenced Nehru, and he also realized the colonial methods of capitalist countries. So when he had gone to Europe, he saw how socialism was and how it was different from capitalism, and how these capitalist countries used to dominate or colonize the developing countries or the weak countries. November 1927, he visited Soviet Union. So initially he defeated other countries, now Soviet Union. Nehru realized Nehru realized and was impressed with Russia. He had faith in Gandhiji's leadership, and December 1927 completely became a socialist. So his experiences with the peasants and Europe and Soviet Union made him a socialist. 1927, there was a debate on character of self-government. At the same time, Simon Commission also came into being, and Simon Commission was for the Constitution of India. So there was a debate on the character of self-government in 1927. Motilal Nehru had spoken about dominion status under the British, whereas young leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and later Subhash Chandra Bose was speaking about Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence. Till Simon Commission, Indian National Congress demanded dominion status, but after Nehru and other socialists like Subhash Chandra Bose, in Madras, there was a real demand for the real independence and not dominion status. Nehru wanted to do away with private property as the socialists want, but he could not do it. The reason was it would have antagonized the rich upper castes. 1928, Nehru Report by Motilal Nehru. This was the answer to Birkenhead, who had challenged the Indians, saying that Indians were not capable of making any constitution. And that is why Motilal Nehru had made this Nehru Report, and it asked for dominion status. Bose and Nehru together asked for complete independence. Subhash Chandra Bose had various similarities with Jawaharlal Nehru. Let's see what were the similarities, and later we'll see the differences. So you have understood something about Jawaharlal Nehru. Now let's see about Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose did not side with no changers. He did not side with no changers. Initially supported pro-changers like Chittaranjan Das, but then like Nehru, he also then did not support pro-changers. So there were two sides after non-cooperation movement: no changers and pro-changers. No changers means they followed Gandhiji's ideology and constructive program, and pro-changers were those who followed the Swarajist and the responsivists. So initially Subhash Chandra Bose supported pro-changers, later he withdrew his support. In Calcutta, he became the chief administrative officer from July-October 1924, whereas Jawaharlal Nehru was a chairman of Allahabad Council, April 1923-25. So many things in common you can see. Like did not support no changers, no pro-changers, did not like the withdrawal of NCM, and was for freedom, socialism, etc. A lot of similarities. But there were some differences. Jawaharlal Nehru got opportunity to visit abroad and work with the masses. Bose thought about the oppressed but from distance. He did not get chance to work with the masses. Bose was more radical. but not clear about the socialists' ideas. Bose not as committed as Nehru in Gandhiji's leadership nor non-violence. So we are seeing the differences. Many a time asked in the various exam, there were differences between Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru. Similarity with Nehru in mass mobilization and anti-imperialistic views. So both were similar in mass mobilization. Both could bring or pull masses, but and anti-imperialistic views. But there were some differences. August 1928, Nehru launched Independence for Indian League to counter Dominion status as a form of Indian Republic on socialistic lines. So remember, Indian Independence League, August 1928. Subhash joined Nehru at the Calcutta session against Dominion status, but there was limited success. So first time in 1927 in Madras session, they started talking about complete independence. In 1928, Indian Independence League for complete independence and socialistic ideas, limited success. The real success came in 1929 Lahore session. Complete independence, but exact definition was not known. And we know 26 January 1930, declaration of complete independence was made. The next point you have to remember, many leaders including Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose communicated to the youth through youth leagues, Hindustani Seva Dal, Naujawan Bharat Sabha, volunteers movements and students organizations. Through various leagues, they started speaking to students. To workers, they spoke through ITUC, that is All India Trade Union Congress. Nehru became the president 1929, Subhash Chandra Bose 1931. Nehru and Bose together were exposed to exploitation, which helped increase socialism amongst the masses. And they also got the people for supporting them because the people were exploited. And finally, Karachi session of the Congress, March 1931, draft of fundamental rights. So you must remember Jawaharlal Nehru, how he is having exposure to Europe, and because of which his socialism is developing. And Subhash Chandra Bose, lot of similarities between Subhash Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru. And we also know 1927 complete independence was first spoken against Dominion status. 1928 Calcutta session, a little bit of success, and 1929 Lahore session, complete success. 1931 Karachi session for the freedom and fundamental right. And as said earlier, Nehru wanted to do away with private property, but he was not that keen because it would have led to antagonization of the rich upper section. 1931 session, important for fundamental rights and economic program. End of civil disobedience movement, Jawaharlal Nehru went towards peasants, whereas Bose tilted towards workers. So that's the difference. Congress Socialist Party was formed in 1934. Inspiration was from Bose and Nehru, but both did not join and participate in Congress Socialist Party. Subhash Chandra Bose from 1933 to 36 and 38 was at the helm of affairs in the Indian National Congress. Struggle for freedom intensified and he was very impatient. Nehru necessity for mingling freedom. He spoke about mingling freedom with socio-economic struggle. So Nehru was speaking with freedom with socio-economic struggle. So that is what even your socialism is all about. Not only political but also socio-economic importance. Nehru was for democratic socialism. Nehru was a president of Congress in Lucknow session 1935 and Faizpur session 1936. Very important Faizpur session 1936. It was for the agriculture. Faizpur session 1936, remember. And areas of influence of Nehru was agrarian, where Nehru is important in our constitution. It is agrarian, first session, constitution, civil liberties, responsible government, and this is showed in Prajamandal against states, princely states. Worldwide campaign against fascism, Spanish Civil War, Japan. In 1938, Haripura session. Now, Haripura session is important for Subhash Chandra Bose. Nehru, remember, Lucknow session and Faizpur. 1938, Haripura session, Subhash Chandra Bose. That session was not that attractive from the ideological point of view. Bose was more of a practical person, radical person, not focusing more on the ideology. There was a left and the right divide and instrumental in formation of National Planning Commission under the chairmanship of Jawaharlal Nehru. Remember 1938 National Planning Committee was formed. 1938 and Jawaharlal Nehru was a chairman. It was initiated by Bose, Subhash Chandra Bose. Growth of socialism in 1940s. In 1940s, anti-imperialistic struggle was clear. Congress had matured, socialism had matured by this time. So anti-imperialistic struggle was clear. Method was clear, how they will be doing it. Bringing of masses was clear, mobilization was clear. And the most important part, destination was clear, that how the India should be after the Britishers are thrown out. Okay, so you have to remember this. 1945-46, there was an election manifesto of Congress and it contained elements of socialist program. Then we have 1945 Congress Working Committee accepted abolishment of the intermediaries. So we saw how socialism rose in 1917. Then we saw in 1920s how it affected various Congress members and Indian National Congress and the movement. We saw the role of Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose. Now in 1940s we are seeing how it matured and it will be going ahead. 1945 we have Congress Working Committee accepting abolishment of intermediaries. Let's see the ideology of program of the socialists. So the ideology and program was first anti-imperialistic struggle and socialist India. So that was the first ideology or program, that is to be a part of the mainstream movement under Congress. The socialists did not want to have a separate party or separate thing altogether, but to work under the Congress against British, and second, establish socialist India. Second point was class struggle against exploitation. So they didn't only focus on the political struggle but also socio-economic. Freedom not only political but also socio-economic, as just said. Organized peasants and workers. This movement organized peasants and workers. Socialism will influence them most. Socio-economic transformation through planning, socialization from production, distribution and exchange. So socio-economic transformation through planning. 1938 we have National Planning Committee. 1944 we have Bombay Plan. In this it was decided that socio-economic transformation will happen through planning, socialization from production, distribution and exchange. It was a pro-labor, pro-peasants program. They were anti-fascists. They subscribed to anti-war policy and anti-imperialist. So very important, the ideology you should know. So first two are socialist India and imperialist against imperialism. Class struggle is important, focused on socio-economic as well as political. Peasants and workers influenced, and it was to make a socio-economic transformation through planning. Pro-labor, pro-peasants, anti-fascist, and finally anti-war and anti-imperialistic. Now let's see what are the impact of socialist movement on the Congress. Okay, let's see what are the impact. So how will you write the introduction? Congress was a multi-class movement. So that is the Indian National Congress or Indian National Movement was a multi-class movement. It was not that one section or the one society or one ideology influenced the INC or the Indian National Movement. Socialist impact on ideological transformation. So it was more of ideological. So socialists did not want to change the Congress into a socialist party. It was just ideological transformation. Congress did not transform into a particular class party. Socialism imposed a moral, intellectual, and social development alternative. Radicalism, socialist vision, and freedom in socio-economic terms. Steps to organize mass struggle, take up cause of workers, peasants, and all sections of society. This was the impact. So just you have to remember, when you start the introduction, you will say that Congress was not a single party or a single class movement. Socialism put an impact on the ideological transformation, and Congress was such an open party that anyone who wanted to influence this party could have influence, because it was open to all. And socialism imposed a moral, intellectual, and social development alternative. So the first impact is it. Let's see the impact. It led to radicalism, socialist vision, and freedom. Very important. So as I had told you, Subhash Chandra Bose was radical. There was socialist vision. Socialism came after the independence, and freedom, that was the most important thing. In socio-economic struggle, to take up causes of workers, peasants, and all sections of society. In 1930s and 40s, Gandhiji became radical. So one of the reasons for socialism, we can see impact of socialism. So we are seeing the impact. First, radical, socialist vision, freedom. Gandhiji became radical. Socialist impact fell on right wing as well. Even leaders like Madan Mohan Malviya and others, even they had an impact on them. So they were not the right wing as the European context say. Congress took up cause of people of princely states also, the Praja Mandal. So that's the princely states also, Congress. So that was an impact. Socialist impact on Congress due to young leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Narendra Dev, Achyut Rao Patwardhan, Jay Prakash Narayan, etc. Karachi session was another impact. So when we say about the impact, radical social freedom, Gandhiji had on Gandhiji there was an impact. On right wing there was an impact. Princely states saw the impact, and young leaders, and even the Karachi session. In the Faizpur session, which was on agrarian program, there were some points which was the impact of socialism. The points was, first you have to remember, focus was on reducing the land revenue, no feudal levies, no forced labor, fixed tenure for the tenants, and fixed wages. So this can be seen even after independence. So it was the socialist impact. So Faizpur session impact, remember, less land revenue, no feudal levies, no forced labor, fixed tenure, and fixed wages. There was impact on the election manifesto, 1936, 1945 to 1946. So these were the impacts, you can say, on the election manifesto of Indian National Congress. 1937, Congress ministries worked on socialistic lines. National Planning Committee, as told earlier, 1938 was formed. 1934, Congress Socialist Party was formed. 1945, Congress Working Committee decided on abolition of zamindari. So impact we see. So there was an ideological impact, there was impact on objectives, there were impact on goals, mostly socialist goals. Aspect of socialist movement. So we'll see some critical. We'll see what is a critical appraisal. Failed to make a definite study on Indian reality. So they were not having a definite and deep study on Indian reality. It did not understand Gandhiji's strategy. So they were against Gandhiji's strategy. So it did not understand that. Remained engrossed with conflict on wrong issues with Congress. So they, as I had told you earlier also, they were listening to the 6th International Congress of Communist International and 7th Communist International. So they were listening to them and they were criticizing the Congress. So on the wrong issues they were fighting with Congress. Could not comprehend the strength and efficacy of the mass movement. They could not judge. They wanted mass movement but could not judge what is the strength and the efficacy. And finally, they believed in more doctrinal lines, and doctrinal difference was there with democratic socialism, and many believed in Marxist socialism. So this was the criticism of the socialist. Let's see why Congress was focused towards uh, socialism. First of all, Congress was heterogeneous. It was ideologically heterogeneous, not homogeneous. Like the Socialist Congress was pro people. It was not a class domination. Congress was not a class domination, but ideological, nor there was a ideological hegemony in the Congress. So anyone who joined and could influence Congress, that ideology will dominate. So socialists joined Congress so that they could transform them to a particular ideology. And till 1917 we are seeing the bourgeoisie was dominating, but there was no results, and that is why socialism came as an alternative. Dominant position of Mahatma Gandhi tilted towards socialism, and that is why socialism became dominant in Congress. And finally, we can see right wing had reformist attitude, not like some conservatives. And finally, majority of Congress cadre at lower levels were favorable towards socialism. So this is how we see socialism was towards, or Congress was accepting socialism because of its heterogeneous attitude, the people involved inside, the openness. And socialism also was like the Congress attitude. It was similar. The lower class people or the lower levels favorable towards socialism. Gandhiji was an important factor, and even the right wing. So all these reasons we have seen how socialism rose, how it grew, who were the leaders involved, how it impacted Congress, what was the criticism, and finally why Congress was open to socialism. Okay, so this is about socialism. Remember, the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Thank you very much for listening.